Right, showtime. AI made simple live. Last week we talked about the rule of seven. It's a marketing framework where we've all heard that you got to tell people something seven times before they hear it. So I wanted to share this with you. It just really nails that point. So obviously, girlfriend has said things more than seven times. And so she's trying to get the point across here, right? And that's funny. If you notice how many times she clicks on it, it's at least seven times, right? But there's a lot of things going on here. Um, why is this connect with us so much, and why is it funny? Why is it entertaining? We're relating to a frustration where we told people so many times and they're still not doing it. And then there's an emotional piece where we'll remember this because it made us laugh. And then it's an illustration of this, the rule of seven. The the message has to be sent. So what is happening here is a perfect example of what we're talking about today. If they don't feel it, they won't remember it. And this is this is funny. It makes you feel it. We've all heard that comment. They don't remember what you say; they remember how you make them feel. And so, in the world of leadership, and that's that's who I work with. That's who this show is for leaders. And it's the biggest problem that we face is that we have these complicated solutions or concepts or ideas or plans that we need to take from our heads, to get out of our heads and get it into a format and then share it to where it makes sense and where it connects and where it sticks. And so I just thought that was funny and really connected and made the point. So today, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you a few things here inside of Notebook LM, and then I'm going to show you how to use it. So let's see if Steve can pull this off today. Where is Notebook LM? Here we go. Okay. So in the world of communication, leadership communication, the we went through a series of the three stories that you need to be able to tell. You need to be able to tell the story of your solution in your prospect or your customer's aspirational future where they're succeeding and they have your solution alongside of them, and it becomes a part of their identity. And then you need to be able to tell the story for the team, that you need to be deliberate and drive the culture, not drive, but to lead the culture and to create a source of truth that everybody can refer to, and that it becomes a deliberate way to lead the culture. And that's a story you need to be telling. And then the other story you need to be telling is the information that you're sharing via blogs, emails, social posts, etc. You need to be seeding the AI search engines with your perspective, your opinion, your solutions. And so your story that you're telling the for the future of AI search is very important. And that's where a custom GPT, or being able to download all that subject matter expertise from the brain of the leader and get it into a format that can be shared, right? Well, the other thing is you need to be able to nail the emotional requirement of communication. And again, if you can share something that if you can share something in a format that creates an emotion, then it sticks. And so to make a vision stick, leaders need to move from simply informing with data and imprinting, making it stick via cognitive clarity, emotional resonance, and social cohesion. Those are big words there. And we're going to do a set of three series of talking about that. But we're moving from, and we've all been in that situation where, look, this solution there's everything about it is logical. Why did they not? Why did they not see the logic? And it's because we didn't resolve the emotional aspect of it. We didn't communicate the vision. And oftentimes, in a situation where we're communicating a vision of our solution into our prospect or customer's future, it's not always one to one. If it's one to one, that persuasion process, that communication process is um, defined. We just need to understand what's the important problem we need to resolve for that one to one conversation, and then bring the solution in and resolve that, right? But when we're talking about a multiple stakeholder um, conversation where we need to move, we need to align 5 or 6 people and get them on the same page. That's where this visual storytelling aspect of the challenge comes in. And so we need to come up with this. We need to figure out that the specific feeling and trigger that neurobiological memory. And then we need to be able to clearly build it into a form, in a visual form. And then we need to get the group to sync. They need to learn something. There needs to be that aha moment, that what's called imprinting in the world here. So what am I using? I'm using a tool called Notebook LM. It's free. You can just go to notebooklm.google.com. You can sign up. This is free, and it's an amazing tool that takes your messy thoughts, brings them in, and it helps you clearly communicate them in a visual way, and it resolves many of these issues that we're covering today. If we look at in a group persuasion, we have a gap here. We got to move from me to we. And so we have a multiple audience dilemma. And today when I was working on this, it's you have these feelings, but they're actual concepts that help you illustrate your feelings. And so as a leader, I need to go, all right, so I've noticed this pattern. You can go in and do research inside of ChatGPT, and so, for example, I went in here and I said, hey, this is a pattern I'm seeing. This is what's going on. Help me organize this, and help me do a little research and come back with what's going on. Okay. And so it came back and it says, people remember how you made them feel has staying power. It's imprecise language for a real phenomenon, and it's called emotional encoding that lasts longer than informational encoding. So, the thesis is this: leadership persuasion in complex environments requires 3 alignments: cognitive clarity, they understand it; emotional resonance, they feel it; and social cohesion, they experience together, right? And so visual storytelling is powerful because it hits all 3 at one time. We only have a little bit of time for when people will focus on a topic, and we have 3 problems we have to resolve, and visual storytelling nails all 3 of those paths. Okay. And so we have multiple stakeholders. Well, they have diverse backgrounds, they have different incentives, and you're trying to resolve all of those things at once. Then we have another competing, and those value, and that's functions. They optimize for different wins. Each of them will look at it as a different kind of win for them, or a different kind of problem for them. And then we have a problem with individuals acting differently when seen, fearing they might look uninformed or careless. So we're putting something at risk. There, when we bring information that's new, novel information, we're immediately skeptical. That's why that's why reviews for a business are so important, because look, we don't have time to go through a whole your brain's like this bodyguard that you have, and it's basically saying, I don't have time to read all of that junk. It'd be nice to just go and see how other people weighed in, and that shortcuts the process, right? And so in that's what you're up against in a multiple audience, and that's what's at risk in a group persuasion. And think when we think about, all right, Steve, this is great, this is interesting, but when you realize what's at risk, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars are at risk if you don't nail this message, if you don't get this group to buy in, and if this organization doesn't choose you as their vendor, or if this grant committee doesn't offer you a grant for your nonprofit, that's what's at risk. And that's why this is so important. And that's why this is such a big advantage for you. And that's why other people excel, because they naturally get it. They're natural storytellers, but most of us aren't. And so, how can we up level what we're doing? And that's by using AI. And now, especially when they're multimodal, when it's creating these infographics with just some messy input, oh my gosh, all of a sudden you just got a superpower to convey the essence of what you're feeling. There happens to be actual definitions of it. This is a structured explanation of what's going through your head. Okay. And then how do you, all right, this is great, much more information for me to take in, but how do I take it and use it? Well, you bring it into Notebook LM, you pop it in as a source, and I'll show you how. And this is the output. Okay. So in a group situation, here's what you're able to do. There has to be an aha moment in a group situation. You think about a workshop that you went to, or an event or a presentation. You went with a group of people, and there was some emotional thing that unified you. You learned something new together. Okay, that was your aha moment. It bonded you, it aligned you, and it also creates a process. It's a persuasion thing. If you just acknowledge this and then figure out a way to resolve it, that's with visual storytelling. And so a quick way to align a group is to teach them something in a way that they all learn something, and then all of a sudden now we've a teaching concept everyone agrees on, and creates a common ground for a new we status. We have altered the reality. Everyone's there in their diverse realities, and now we've created a way to pull them into one common reality. And this manufactured a shared reality. So once everyone adopts the same lens, your solution feels like a logical next step. See how this this visual tool quickly shows how it aligns everybody. And then you've created what's called collective effervescence, like popping a Alka-Seltzer in and it's sparkling. This is called collective effervescence. Experiencing a meaning-making moment together increases emotional bonding and group momentum. And so group persuasion fails when individual stakeholders have competing incentives and social pressures. And by teaching a group together, leaders can manufacture a shared reality, and that transforms a collection of individuals into a unified we. And so we have this concept of triad of alignment. And so to successfully imprint or stick a vision, make a vision land and stick in their emotional, we have to simultaneously achieve these three states. And that's cognitive clarity. They understand it. Immediately make a complex concept just make sense in a sentence. That one thing there, um, for years, when people ask me, "What do you do, Steve?" I'm telling you, that's the hardest thing to explain. But we do all this complicated stuff. How can I say it in one sentence? That's a big challenge. And so a visual representation makes that land and makes it easy. But to be an expert at that, you'd have to study for years. I mean, we are enamored by people who just get this. I think about thought leaders that you appreciate. They nailed that. Well, they did a bunch of exercise. They've explained it 1,000 times, and it finally became succinct in this one thing. And then there's this confidence that emits from that, having that powerful phrase that pulls together a complex concept, right? And that's what AI offers us who don't have the 1,000 times to we said it 1,000 times in all these various environments, but we didn't sit down and deliberately nail it. And so AI shortcuts that process. The other thing is emotional resonance. They need to feel it. That explanation needs to have a metaphor or some sort of analogy. Why? Because it creates an emotion. When the dots connect, that aha moment, that means that there was a spark of emotion. You just sunk that in. You just got it to set, and they will remember. They may not remember exactly what you said, but they remember how it made them feel. It gives them courage to go and try to explain it to others. Okay. So great. You explain something clearly to a bunch of people, but you know what the next step is. They're going to go and try to go, "Hey, I was at this I experienced this. I went to conferences, learned and saw the future, and came back excited, and then when sitting and tried to tell it to my team, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do next." And the the look on their faces and the questions I would get was, it was like, "Well, how was the food?" Or they totally would, they would totally miss, and I would be disappointed. Why aren't they excited about that? Because I wasn't nailing these things, right? I wasn't offering. They didn't go with me and experience together, and so therefore we lack the social cohesion. And that's what this emotional, making it stick, that's what's at risk if you don't do this. And you have to pull these three things in to do that. Okay. And so when you have this emotional spine, and this is why visuals will outlast data. The emotion, y- when you take content, in, a tag, all a tag is, when you go and do a social post, remember everybody would do a tag. What you're saying with a tag, when you bring information into your database and you tag it with X, and you can have multiple tags, all you're saying is, when this particular, whatever this tag represents, when it's pulled up, include this concept in that list. Okay. So emotion is the importance tag on the concept. And what's going on is the amygdala, this lizard part of your brain, is wanting to prioritize emotional information for long-term storage. That's what's going on in the brain. Okay. And then here, before you learn to read and write and to do a report, a story was always applicable and powerful, and that's how you operated in the world, and that's how version point one of your brain will always be that version. And that's why story is so powerful, because it's already baked into this format. It's already baked into the system. Well, you don't get off the hook of resolving that, no matter what type of information you present or what format. So the more data that you put in these spreadsheets, that we go to school, learn how to write, and we're getting industrialized. We're being pulled out of the story-based world and into formatting things into an industrialized format. That's what all of this represents, right? But no matter what format you put in, the people who are leaders and who get this, they'll bubble it back up to resolve the brain. And so the visual application, and this is where AI takes us now, is quickly being able to categorize and illustrate this information in a way that makes sense and resolves the brain's this point, your brain 1.0, it needs it still no matter what. And so when you take this into consideration and your challenge of persuasion, you got to define the desired feeling, define a sense of shared purpose, define a visual metaphor, wrap it around it, wrap that data around a metaphor. And so you're nailing these three things. So we talked about three stories, and now we have to know the three components of that story. And now we have a shared mental artifact, right? And so here's where you do it. All right, great, Steve, you convinced me, but how in the world do I do this? And how do I do it without having to become an expert? And how I need this to go for my next meeting in 20 minutes. Easy. Notebook LM. So over here on the left, if you haven't used Notebook LM, it's the most important tool for a leader today, period. Okay. And you have a source of truth. Imagine this is your knowledge base. This is your subject matter expertise that's brought in. You've heard people complain, yeah, I don't trust using ChatGPT because it pulls information from all these sources, and I'm afraid it's going to bring in information that's not pertinent. Well, this is how that is resolved, because this is a box, and you're saying this is your large language model or your chat tool. Okay, you're saying only consider this information that I have imported. This is where you add a source. You'll bring your source in from files, from copied text that you copy. You just come and paste it from websites and or YouTube videos or Google Drive, directly in Google Drive. Your company has, or your organization has, a lot of information stored in files. And this is how you collect it and bring it in. So you can be you can be picky about what information for this particular challenge, this communication challenge that you have, you can bring it in. But also, Notebook LM does offer you to go and do research, deep research. If there are sources out there you want to include, then it'll go in and it'll go out and bring those in. And then you can pick, after you review them, you can pick which ones you like and bring them over into your source of truth, into your knowledge base, into this subject matter expertise. Okay. So that's how you bring that in. And that's how you look at this side over here. Over here is where you can chat and interrogate this data as a whole. In specific, I just want to interrogate this particular aspect of the information that I've brought in. And this will create all sorts of explanation or distillation of this information over here. So what you're doing, you're taking data, messy data, and then you can bring it over here and then distill it or organize it or get it down to the most important pieces. And then you can save it to a note that would bring it over here. You can bring that note back around, and then it can become a very, think about, you've got a large source of data, and then you're going to want to make a report on a specific aspect of that data. That would be how you would do it. That's how you can distill it down. The other day, I listened to a podcast of a long 3-hour interview with Elon Musk. And they were all over the place. And there was a discussion about culture, how he approaches culture. There was a discussion about SpaceX. There was a discussion about data centers um, in orbit. There was a discussion about XAI. There was all these various discussions. And I could bring that 3-hour conversation in. Then I could ask this chatbot to just take out the main parts about a specific aspect of the culture, for example. I could create a source from there. It would deposit that source here, and then I could bring it around and upload it. And then I could pick that source. And then this is where the visual storytelling, this tool is your storytelling ninja. This turns you into an expert in using that source and creating various versions of visual data. So now let's go over here and look at it's called a studio. So imagine, I've had the blessing of a team of experts that when I look at them, I've got one of my people is great at taking data and creating it into workflows or organizing it with spreadsheets, et cetera. And then another person I have is great at creative. And so they can help me with infographics or a slide deck. I have other folks that are great at writing, and they can take it and then edit it and make that writing really sing. And that was the legacy version of this. But what if you don't have the budget to go out and hire and train, and over the years bring them in and inculcate them or bring them up to become an expert in all your services, your clients, your pricing, your products, why we believe most of us don't have time for that, right? Well, you don't need it now. So you would choose over here, if I wanted the mechanics of collective persuasion, I now have a choice that I can get a video overview of this particular aspect or all of them. I can have, hey, in aggregate, do me a video overview of this information over here. Well, it's going to create an explainer video, and it's going to do it within minutes. And guess what I'm prepared for? My next meeting, my proposal, whatever I need. All of a sudden, I show up with a superpower to connect all of these three things and get in this zone. So if I wanted an infographic off of any of these, I could generate that infographic. Not only could I generate that infographic, I can come in and be specific about what I want this infographic to focus on. Do I want it concise? Do I want it standard? Do I want to risk it being detailed? And do I want it in these versions? Hey, this is cool. I have a Spanish audience now in Mexico. So I'm going to create an asset that I can share with my Spanish audience. This is amazing. It is immediate. It's today, and this is free. So let's go look at some of the assets. We've been viewing some of these that I created just from what I showed you. This is how these were created. So if we're looking at the group persuasion gap here, so this is the mechanics of collective persuasion. So if I wanted on the imprinting vision, the art of visual storytelling, then I would click it. But over here, these are infographics. This little icon represents an infographic. This represents a slideshow. So you can go in and have it create an actual slideshow. I was showing you, this is an aspect of a slideshow here. So this is the biology of forgetting. This is one of the slides. So if this is imprinting the vision, and then we have it created 15 slides from that resource. And this is one of the slides. And this is why we forget. Rational presentations fail to survive the room. This is what's at risk if you lean on data to do the work for you. You just put an you just gave them something that's going to degrade over time. Also, the other thing is, I've done this. We've all done this. We've showed up with this beautiful piece of a PDF or a workbook or a leave behind. Had a cover and you could pages and we handed it to someone, and in a group persuasion, we expected them to go back and champion it for us. That's a we just put them in a dilemma. And so rationality is forgettable, complexity strains, and data decays. I couldn't have said it better. You see how this tool turned this information that I organized via um, via a brainstorm, and I just asked. I said, this is how this whole conversation started in preparation for today. Um, I just downloaded, hey, these are the things I'm feeling. I know there are named concepts that exist, but when we learn something together, we feel closer, and it builds a sense of camaraderie. What is that called? And so it went out, it did the research, it organized it, it came back with the terms. And that's called audience heterogeneity and the multiple audience problem, and why it feels so different than one-to-one persuasion. And the terms for when people learn something together are collective effervescence, shared reality, communitas. That's pretty cool. Anyway, this this is what this is the superpower that Notebook LM can give you as a leader when there's so much at risk if you fail in conveying your solution in the few moments that their brain allows them to focus. So, my call to action today is go sign up for Notebook LM. If you're not using it, go sign up. It's free. Upload your information, organize it, go through a conversation. And if you don't have the information that you want to upload, go and have a conversation with ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever tool you're comfortable with, Grok. Get it organized that where you feel good about it, copy and then come paste it as a source in here, and then allow Notebook LM to help you clarify your visual challenge and nail these three things in the group presentation that's at risk. Where is it? Where is it? I thought I had it in here. Anyway, and the other thing is, if you need one of these little pointers, you can get them at Walmart. They're just $4.98. Get your pointer, say it 7 times in just a few seconds, make it emotional, nail your point. That's funny. All right, another episode of AI Made Simple on the books. If you like, you got value, subscribe. By the way, my QR code up here on the left, this is where you can, it's on the right. This is where scan it, schedule a time. I work with folks just like you to help them shortcut this process and get their team aligned as well using these tools, communicating, taking that subject matter expertise, getting it in a format, and becoming the default answer in your industry. Did you know that if you don't define the problem and if you don't illustrate the solution, your industry is going to pick some solution? Lead your industry. Lead with your subject matter expertise. It's legit. You've spent years collecting it. This is how you download it. This is how you organize it. If you need some help, scan this, schedule a time, and let's talk. I'm Steve ROI Brown. This is AI Made Simple, another episode on the books. And that's a wrap.